Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about the Dwarves in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And a couple of changes that I believe Creative Assembly should make for the Dwarves in the game to further refine them. Don't get me wrong, the Dwarves are in an amazing state in the aftermath of Thrones Decay. No complaint from that perspective, certainly much better than they were previously. But there are just some things I believe Creative Assembly should do to improve them further. So first thing to talk about is oathgold. You can either have a lot or you can have very, very little. And the process of gaining it is admittedly kind of tedious. The reason I say it is tedious is because you fight battles, and I don't know what Creative Assembly has done, but the amount of oathgold you earn in the aftermath of battles seems to have been reduced by quite a bit. So actually gaining oathgold through battles is not really a workable option, because yeah, just getting 28 for that kind of battle is absurdly low considering how difficult that kind of battle can absolutely be. Right there, like dealing with two full vampire stacks should net you a heck of a lot more than that. But the other way you gain oathgold is through buildings, and this is actually the primary way of earning it. So you can gain oathgold per turn from the guild marketplace. You do have this income building choice, but really, while reducing construction costs can be very, very substantial, just giving yourself oathgold is going to be far more substantial. It can help reducing construction costs very early on in a campaign, but later on it's going to be more important to have that oathgold. Especially because you can convert oathgold into cash. Like seriously, the amount of money you can gain by spending a good amount of your oathgold per turn is ludicrous. Or you want money, just get a bunch of oathgold. So get a bunch of those oathgold structures, get some of the deeps, and get ornate gold, client goldsmiths. That is going to be a huge amount. Although, to be fair, you could always get extra oathgold if you want to, assuming you get a certain amount of income. But the problem here is, in terms of gaining it, is like very early on you have a limited number of oathgold. Later on in a campaign you have more than you can spend. The way you spend it is on two things. One is research, and there are some techs that cost 1,000 oathgold. Like you can spend thousands of oathgold in the tech tree, which is annoying early on when you are in the most substantive portion of the campaign, but later on it's irrelevant. But you have things like construction guilds, grand throne chamber. That is extremely powerful. The problem is, you're also using oathgold for items, and since Creative Assembly has reduced the number of items that they dropped, they have fixed how many items the dwarves are getting, because it was way too low. But you can use oathgold to craft items, and given that dwarves can get a lot of heroes and can basically churn out armors of destiny like there's no tomorrow, you can understand the kind of power that the dwarves do have. But here's the thing. The situation with regards to crafting items, the situation with regards to using the forge, is again that kind of state of affairs where it is annoying early on, and later on it's just free power. Praying money, printing items. Honestly, I haven't even been printing items over here because you are so strong as the dwarves, where even in a campaign like this, where Thorgrim got wiped out, Grumbrindle got wiped out, Ungrim almost got wiped out, so I had to reconquer a lot of that territory. Even in a campaign like this, I don't even need to do that in order to win. So it just kind of feels like fluff, basically. I think that research should not be tied to the same resource that is being used to craft items. And I think that CA needs to improve the balancing with regards to how oathgold works, as opposed to just basically telling players, hey, you can just get tons of this and convert it into money by getting these kind of guild marketplaces. It's not really a great dynamic, I think. It's just a lot of busy work. It does get tedious as you play a longer and longer campaign. So that's the first thing that I would change to dwarves, the situation of oathgold. The second thing I would change for the dwarves is legendary grudges. Now, I've generally been in favor of the Age of Reckoning, and I'm still very much in favor of the Age of Reckoning. I think it's a great system that incentivizes people to go out there and do stuff. So no real complaints on that subject from my view. Admittedly, some balancing could always be done, and I do dislike the fact that the temporary army is just kind of worthless and a throwaway thing because it doesn't replenish. Like, oh, you're giving me this cool army, but it's led by a level of 1 lord, so it doesn't have the skills. It kind of have some powerful unit, but occasionally, and it can't replenish, so you have to fight every battle manually with it, just not because you need to, but because of replenishment. That's kind of one of the shittiest dynamics in regards to battles. You should fight battles because you have to, and you should fight battles because they're fun, not because, oh, my army can't replenish, but I'll win it in 20 seconds flat. Yeah, that's not a fun dynamic. But that kind of issue aside, what I dislike here is, especially on a lot of replays, because keep in mind, I've spent a lot of hours playing the Dwarf, so it's not something that might be obvious very early on, but as you spend a lot of these hours, you start getting annoyed by the legendary grudge system. You don't have to do it, for the record. You don't have to engage in it, but what's frustrating here is, like, you have some really cool rewards, especially like the Underway. But reality is, by the time you unlock some of these rewards, chances are your campaign is long over. Like, even if you play a campaign as Forgrim, you're probably not going to restore the Underway by the time your campaign is effectively done, because you need to deal with a lot of the stuff. I think that could be improved. Some level of the Underway should exist, or maybe should be segmented, or various stages to these grudges could be improved. What's also annoying is when you have these grudges that require you to hold territory, or for dwarves to hold territory. So, for instance, you look at the Athaloran grudge, right? Here's what you have to do. You have to wipe out all of Athaloran and hold the territory until you complete the grudge. Do you know what I do the moment I finish the grudge? I sell the freaking territory, because I don't need it. The only territory I care about in Athaloran is the Oak of Ages. Okay, maybe the lumber camp involves Anvil, but that's really about it. That's the only worthwhile investment over here in Athaloran. Everything else, just kind of a waste of time, resources, and energy to invest in that. So it's not worth engaging in that. It's especially egregious when you're dealing with, like, Hell Pit, and, you know, you're fighting a campaign as Malachi, and Kislev shows up, they take Hell Pit before you do, even though you may have been spending all the time, resource, and energy taking it from defeating Fraught, and then just Katrin and Chrystaltin show up and ruin your day. Yeah, it's not really the most fun dynamic to be dealing with during the course of a campaign, from my view. And I'm not quite sure why Katrin abandoned my alliance there. Anyway, that is not a great dynamic to be dealing with during the course of a campaign, where it's like, oh, you have to hold this specific piece of territory yourself, or else, right? That is not the dynamic I personally enjoy in a lot of different ways. And it's not just the case for dwarves, it's the case in a lot of different campaigns for a lot of different legendary lords, those kind of objectives. Like, you look at Imperial Authority, right? I understand the idea of Imperial Authority, and funnily enough, it's an issue with the Empire, which also got reworked in Forensic 8, but you look at Imperial Authority, the fact that the Empire has to control every single region of the Empire directly, so it can only be an Imperial faction. So, oh, if Kislev holds a bit of territory, you're not going to max out Imperial Authority. If the Dwarves or anything like that, or you have to go out of your way to wipe out the Wood Elves. That is something I think should be improved, but yeah, it does affect the Dwarves with the legendary grudges, it affects the Empire with Imperial Authority. And then finally, what I would also improve is the campaign situation for Belegar and the campaign situation for Forik. Belegar in particular, I would say, stands out. Like, some people will argue, including, I think, Legend of Total War, but certainly quite a few people will argue, oh, it's just a challenging campaign. It's not a challenging campaign. It's a frustrating piece of crap campaign in a lot of ways, because it's frustrating dealing with a massive economic hit, but it's even frustrating when you quote-unquote take Caracade Peaks and win, quote-unquote. The reason I say it's frustrating, because the moment you take Caracade Peaks, you not only have that penalty being removed, you get such a substantive benefit to your faction that nothing is going to stand in your way. Like, the kind of gigantic benefits that Belegar gains if he takes Caracade Peaks, as opposed to having his entire economy in the ground until he does so, is not really a great dynamic. Again, should be more segmented, should be, should be a journey as opposed to you score, you win, that's it, right? Like, I think it should be a question like holding Caracade Peaks to get those kind of benefits. From my perspective, different kinds of situations. And really, Belegar's campaign suffers a lot. I also think Forest's campaign does suffer quite a bit as well. Jungle focus when you don't really want to go, jungle climate when you don't really want to go in the jungle, and not really a great dynamic in that campaign either. Powerful Lord, don't get me wrong, but just not a great dynamic. So those are some of the things I would look to change with the Dwarves. And just on a side note, I really would want better pathfinding for gyrocopters. Don't get me wrong, gyrocopter, gyrobombers, much better units than they were pre-patch. Pre-Front's Decay, that is. But the problem is, their pathfinding, because there's so many models per unit, is not great. It's an actual issue with these kind of vehicles vehicles in any kind of unit, flying unit or on the ground. It's actually a problem that hurts chariots on the ground a lot. Yeah, I know. But when you have these kind of vehicles and you have more than 4 of them, and even in cases of 4, there can be a lot of pathfinding issues where a lot of the models are not being used effectively. So I think that's one of the things I would like CA to improve, but that's kind of side note compared to everything I've mentioned. That's all I had to say. Christine, signing out.